Beautiful. Thank you, Kimberly. And welcome to worship, everyone, this morning. It is good to be with you on this beautiful here in San Diego, May gray day. I just want to welcome you. I'll have a little bit more words of welcome in a little bit, but I want to go ahead and begin our service as we begin all of our services and public gatherings at the fellowship by acknowledging that we at Palomar Fellowship, and me where I am 2 miles from the fellowship, are on the stolen land of the Luiseño and the Kumeyaay people. In our congregation, we light a red candle. We were charged with doing this land acknowledgement by people from DRUM, the Diverse, Revolutionary, Unitarian, Universalist, Multicultural Ministries, back in 2017 or 18. And so it's our practice to use a red candle. And if you happen to have one, I invite you to go ahead and light your candle along with us. We light this candle in that acknowledgement, not as a performative act, but as a transformative act, that we ourselves may be transformed as we understand the land that we occupy, the peoples who are still here, and as we work toward ending racial oppression and lifting up and serving the needs of the peoples of this land. So it is good to be together. And I think that we should enter, rejoice, and come in. So let's all sing together.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
I invite you to take a breath with me as we invite the bell. We invite the bell 3 times. Once for those who have gone before, once for those who are with us now, and once for those who will come again. And we say, this is a sanctuary. We are creating a sanctuary across space and time for those seeking and finding their own answers to questions of faith. This is a sanctuary for voices lifted up for peace and justice. This is a sanctuary for those seeking companionship in their struggles and their journeys. It is good to be with you this morning. All my love and blessings and happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers, whether you've birthed human children or not, all of you who have nurtured, coaxed life, birthed creativity, all of you we've all had mothers. Honor those mothers in our lives, those caregivers of whatever gender recognize that sometimes we've had complicated relationships with our mothers. And still, we hold up the notion that we as humans are connected as well to our Mother Earth, the good mother and giver of all. Today's service is a celebration of the merger of the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America. You're going to hear about that history. Our theme this month is story. So we're going to hear some stories. We're going to hear from our Director of Children and Family Ministries, Kathleen Moscato, with a story from Eileen and Christina, and we are just going to kind of layer the stories today as we consider our Unitarian Universalist faith and what it is that is ours to do as we honor the 60th anniversary. I want to thank Adrian Anderson for great tech, and Kimberly Lilly, and as I said, Kathleen, Christina, and Eileen. And I want to welcome all of you this morning as we gather in worship. I want to share with you words by poet laureate, Native American Joe Harjo. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away tonight. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father, he is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth, we are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people and all people are you. Remember you are this universe and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is that life is. Remember, it is good to be together. I invite Eileen Maurer to light our chalice this morning.
Good morning. Beth asked me to share today about what Unitarian Universalist means to me. And honestly, the three lines of our bell ringing, seeking and finding answers to question of faith, lifting our voices for justice and peace, and seeking companionship in our struggles and journeys. That's all I really have to say. But of course, I'm saying more than that, as you all know. And sometime today, I think, as many of us have heard many times, is a quote from Thomas Starr King, who said that Universalists think God is too good to damn them to hell, and Unitarians think they are too good to be damned forever. And I will say that when I joined the fellowship and officially became a UU, I didn't believe in either of those things. I didn't embrace that confidence in the grace of God, and I didn't embrace an exalted view of human nature. I really didn't believe in a good or a bad God. I didn't believe in a higher power at all. certainly not one who held the fate of my afterlife in his hands, or particularly one who would be that concerned with the details of my puny existence. I certainly didn't think that humans were too good to be damned. I thought a lot of them deserved to be damned, maybe not for eternity, but at least long enough to atone for the grief and misery they caused others. So why did I become a UU, you might ask? I love the idea of being able to throw out a lot of old ideas about religion and not have to justify why I was doing it, actually being encouraged to do it. I love the verse of "Don't be afraid of some change" that we sang this morning. I love that I could explore the intersection of science and religion. To me, they're the same thing. Science is the stuff we've started figuring out, and religion is the stuff we're still trying to figure out. And at first, I spent years as a UU figuring out exactly what I don't believe in and why. And then I spent another set of years trying to decide what I do believe in. And I enjoyed the mental challenge of this deep exploration. And I realized that I can never be certain. I'm open to some possibilities that maybe we live more than one life, or that maybe our energy survives the death of our body and is still working in the universe in others. And I'm also open to the possibility that you just die, and that's okay. And all of those years of discernment gave me some confidence in my belief and comfort that I took the effort. But ultimately, I decided, what's the point in wasting so much energy on those decisions? It's not important what existence I'll go to after my death. It's more important to me what existence I'll leave here when I die. And I want to be more concerned with what I've done with my life, what's happened because I was born and lived, not what happens to me after I die. And isn't it a bit greedy to get the gift of existence on earth and then somehow expect that we deserve to have it go on longer, or that we get another complete existence after we die that's better than this one? And that's especially true if we've squandered this existence thinking about ourselves and how we can wring as much as possible for ourselves out of it, rather than figuring out how to share. Now, UUs get a bad rap about not being able to articulate what they do believe in, only what they don't. But I feel what we don't believe in is the important thing. Being able to throw out all that old shit that was based on fear and guilt and shame that doesn't serve us anymore. It's not important to force ourselves to come to some final decision about unwavering belief and thinking that that's going to save us or damn us. So what I get out of UU, even though maybe the original Unitarian and Universalist doctrines don't really figure heavily into my continued commitment, is I love our 6 sources. I love that we are encouraged to access all kinds of ways to think and believe. I love our legacy of deeds, not creeds. And I love finding a place to add my life energy to transforming the world into a better world. I want to be at the forefront of change, including the change to harness love's power to stop oppression, and change that it's going to take to save the life on our planet. I admit I thought that my effect in my life would be more far-reaching. And I really admire people who have had a wider circle of influence and who are able to reach out farther, like Beth and Tom Owen Toll and all the people who can affect hundreds, thousands, things globally. But I still feel really lucky to be part of the little circle of my family and friends, and especially the community at Palomar Fellowship. I hope that something I've done travels outward and enlarges the energy given to me when I was born. I'm going to close with a quote from a 14th century Persian poet and Islamic structure. His name is Hafiz, and it says, "What do sad people have in common? It seems they have all built a shrine to the past and often go there and do a strange wail and worship. What is the beginning of happiness? It is What is the beginning of happiness? It is to stop being so religious like that." Thank you.
Good morning. I'm going to share my screen and share a story with you. It's a story. It's also a telling of, let's see. Okay, there we go. Unitarian Universalism is a really, really long name. And then you add Palomar to the front of that and Fellowship to the end, and it gets even longer. But it's really important, our name, and it's important the reason why we have this long name. So I'm going to tell you why. There we go. Welcome, friends. If you are reading this book, it means that you want to learn more about Unitarian Universalism. Maybe your family goes to a Unitarian Universalist church and you have some questions. Maybe you have friends who are Unitarian Universalists and you are curious about their faith. Either way, asking questions and looking for answers are important to Unitarian Universalists. We believe that no one is ever finished learning. Our faith keeps growing and changing like all living things. This is why we call our faith the living tradition. Let's go exploring and find some answers to your questions together. Who are we? Unitarian Universalism is a very long name. Why? Because it combines the names of two different religions with roots that go back hundreds of years. Unitarianism and Universalism were both Protestant Christian faiths that had many beliefs in common. And in 1961, they decided to join together to become one faith. Today, the 7 principles sum up Unitarian Universalist beliefs. And what is the first principle? Each person is important. All people are important, no matter what they look like or where they come from, who they are, how much money they have, or what kinds of families they live in. None of us is exactly alike, even when we live in the same family or go to the same school. Our differences make the world a better place. Now, it's not just enough to talk about what we think is right. We should work to make the world a better place. Everyone has the right to a safe and happy life. Unitarian Universalist children help people in lots of ways. They hold car washes, pizza parties, bake sales to help raise money to help people all around the world. Older children help younger ones with their homework. Youth groups sometimes serve meals at homeless shelters. Children often lead the way in starting recycling programs in their very own churches. You don't have to be famous to do the right thing. You don't have to be famous to do the right thing. You don't have to be powerful to make a difference. What do we believe in? As we grow, we never stop learning about right and wrong. We learn about how to be the best people that we can be. These ideas are part of what we call our religious values. Like children of all faiths, Unitarian Universalist children learn to practice their religious values at home, in church, and in their schools and neighborhoods. Every religion has its own important teachers. Christians learn from the teachings of Jesus. Buddhists learn from the lessons of Buddha. Unitarian Universalists learn from wise teachers of many religions and from Unitarians and Universalists who came before us. We also learn from the teachers that we have today. New lessons and ideas are all around us. As we grow up and explore all of these, we find our own truths. How do we worship? Unitarian Universalists gather in congregations to share, to celebrate, to give thanks, and to work for a better world. In our churches, we hear words and music from many different religions. We also read the words of modern poets and writers. Most worship services have time to light the chalice, a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Our services usually have a time for quiet thoughts and for prayer said out loud. This time begins and ends with music. Often we say a covenant together. A covenant is a promise we make to each other, and it might sound like this. We will be kind to each other and treat each other fairly. We will respect and honor each other when we are gathered together and when we are apart. Who leads us? Unitarian Universalist congregations make their own decisions and rules. The people in the congregation plan and vote on important decisions. This is known as a democratic process. Most congregations have ministers. Choosing its ministers is one of the most very important decisions a congregation makes. Ministers are people who help us live as Unitarian Universalists. They tell stories. Sometimes those stories are called sermons that show us what it means to be a good person and how religion can help us. Ministers help families when someone is sick or even dying. They believe deeply that each person matters, and they remind us to believe that too. They help us understand that when we work together, we can make a difference in the world. Ministers can help us talk about hard questions like, how can I decide what is right and what is wrong? What would you like to ask a minister? Do we read the Bible? Well, Unitarian Universalists read the Bible and other holy books. Some do, some don't. A holy book is a set of writings about religious beliefs. For Jews, the holy book is the Torah. Some stories and lessons in the Torah are also part of Christians' holy book, the Bible. For Muslims, the holy book is the Quran. Some religions do not have holy books. They have sacred stories that tell about their beginnings, their beliefs, and their traditions. Unitarian Universalists also honor these sacred stories. What is our religious symbol? The flaming chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism in the United States and Canada. Here's the story of how that happened. During World War II, many innocent people in Europe were put in prison. They were imprisoned. Even though they hadn't done anything wrong, they were punished for their religious and political beliefs. Members of the Unitarian Service Committee used the sign of the flaming chalice when they helped these people escape. Over time, the flaming chalice became a symbol of hope and healing, and a way to remember that all we need to help one another. In many Unitarian Universalist congregations today, a flaming chalice is lit at the beginning of worship. The flame reminds us of the spark inside all of us. We recite a chalice lighting that might sound like this. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hands. And this is the church of the loving heart. Do we pray? Well, many Unitarian Universalists pray. Some don't. Some of us have favorite prayers that we say out loud or in private. Prayer is a way to help us listen to our thoughts and to have a conversation with who we think of as God. Prayer can be a remembering what we are thankful for. Prayer can be naming things we are sorry for and promising to do better next time. Praying regularly is one type of spiritual practice. A spiritual practice helps us feel the spirit of love and see what is mysterious and wonderful about the world around us. A daily spiritual practice helps us find a quiet place inside. Even things like listening to music, painting, and gardening can be part of a spiritual practice. Can you think of a spiritual practice that you would like to do? Now, we call our Sunday school religious education or religious exploration in our case, or sometimes we just call it RE for short. It is one of the most fun and interesting parts of the fellowship. Our Sunday school teachers are special leaders who help us learn about what it means to be religious people. Children get to ask questions and explore their own ideas about the world and about themselves. They learn about Unitarian Universalist history and other religions. They put on plays, talk about stories, play games. They do projects that help each other. Some activities are intergenerational, which means that people of all ages learn and work together. What would you like to do in Sunday school? There's lots of different ways that Unitarian Universalists celebrate. Sometimes it's a child dedication or a child welcoming ceremony. Everyone in church welcomes a new baby and promises to help the children become part of the community. Now, there's also coming of age, where many teenagers and congregations help take classes to help to become grown-ups. At the end of the classes, the congregation honors those teens with special ceremony. Congregations hold weddings and commitment ceremonies for couples who promise to love and care for each other and spend their lives together. When someone dies, the congregation holds a memorial service or funeral to remember and celebrate that person's life. These services and celebrations are rites of passage that help us share important changes in our lives. Our flower communion is also a very important celebration in our congregation. Each person brings a flower to the front of the church where they're gathered in a big bouquet to remind us that each of us is as different as each flower, and together we create a wonderful community. And each person gets to take a different flower home than the one they brought, which is a reminder of our gifts that the church and the fellowship are always with us. Unitarian Universalist congregations also celebrate holidays. Our congregations celebrate Christmas, which honors the birth of Jesus. We celebrate Passover, some celebrate Yom Kippur, and pagan celebrations like winter solstice. What's your favorite holiday? The living tradition of our Unitarian Universalist faith began a long time ago, and it keeps growing every day. Our faith helps us to remember how important each one of us as we find our way in the world together. Being a Unitarian Universalist means believing that each of us is responsible for living a good life, respecting others, and caring for our world. Thank you for letting me read this long book with a very long name, Unitarian Universalist. Have happy journeys and remember to keep on asking questions. Now I invite you to join Kimberly in singing our next song, We Would Be One. The lyrics, set to the Finlandia tune by Jean Sibelius, were written by Unitarian member Samuel Anthony Wright for Unitarian and Universalist youth at their Continental Convention in 1953 to 1954. As Jackie James notes in Between the Lines, at this conference, they merged to form the Liberal Religious Youth of the United States and Canada, setting a model for the Unitarian Universalist denomination consolidation in 1961.
We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are.
difficulty there. Thank you. So I was asked to say a little bit about what Unitarian Universalism means to me. This is what I came up with. It's not all inclusive. So when I think about what Unitarian Universalism means to me, honestly, my head spins a little bit. Unitarian Universalism allows me to search for my own path, and I love that. On the other hand, Unitarian Universalism wants me to find my own path. And wow, that's work and responsibility. I grew up in the Lutheran Church, baptized and confirmed, and they had it all pretty well figured out for me. We are saved by the grace of God, not by anything we do. We are saved, our salvation is through faith alone, a confident trust in God. And the Bible is the norm for faith and life, a true standard by which all teachings and doctrines are to be judged. Just one. I like our 6 now. It was a comfy box for a long time, but it didn't allow for too many questions, nor one where I was encouraged to be me as I came out. So I left the church and religion in general for a long time. For many years, I told myself I didn't need faith, that having people deliver me pre-prescribed beliefs was the only way to salvation, for whatever that means, just didn't have any meaning for me. It just wasn't something that I was interested in. There were things that I missed, though. The singing, the comfort in some rituals, the community feeling of call and response. As I've shared here before, part of what made me walk into a Unitarian Universalist church fellowship, I didn't know, it was my kids. I wanted them to have somewhere to learn what I didn't know how to teach them, how to have a healthy relationship with the unknown and the uncertainty. What I didn't realize when I came here was how much space and freedom I would find in Unitarian Universalism. As I said earlier, though, this space and freedom is also a little bit scary. There wasn't a comfy box for me to climb into here. I was expected to create my own. What exactly? It isn't a box. I haven't figured that out. Unitarian Universalism will not spoon feed me anything that it thinks that I need. That's my work to be done. For me, Unitarian Universalism wants and expects me to be curious and stay curious, to find my own paths that will help me fulfill my needs. As I walk and learn on my path, Unitarian Universalism gives me the opportunity to encounter others as they walk on their paths. We meet on our paths and we come together, we covenant, we talk with each other, knowing that we share a promise from our heart to try to understand each other. And I will work to understand their path and not just to react to it because it's different from mine. And as a result of crossing other people's path, mine becomes richer and more personally fulfilling. This is one of the ways that I am able to connect with our 7 principles, our 3rd principles of acceptance of one another and encouraging spiritual growth. In growth in our congregations, we meet and connect and strengthen together. And our 4th principle, free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This is where the work comes in. This is where I get to create my own space. Unitarian Universalism can be hard for me. There are times that I just want someone to tell me what to do, what to believe. But one thing that I've come to understand and know, I don't know a whole lot of things, is that Unitarian Universalism has taught me that I am the person best suited to tell me what I need and what I need to do, what I need to believe in, and that people that I covenant with are part of my journey, but they don't define it. So please join in our congregational covenant to enrich each other as we cross our paths today. In mutual love and grace, we journey together, grounded in profound respect for diversity of beliefs and ideas, sustained by service and shared ministry, enriched through collective spiritual deepening and a safe environment for all generations to thrive. please join me in our words. Together, we are more than we would ever be alone. Therefore, we promise to practice radical hospitality, mindful communication, and active stewardship. Thus do we covenant with each other. We gather each week to affirm this community. Part of this affirmation is acknowledging that we share with one another our time, our talents, and our resources. We live our values by sharing half of our undesignated collection with a local nonprofit organization. This quarter, the plate share goes to Lived Experiences. The mission of Lived Experiences reads, to serve, to hear, to educate. Lived Experience is a nonprofit organization specializing in programs that assist youth and adults addressing their needs and achieving their goals through emotional literacy, mentoring, and community connection through a trauma-informed lens. Lived Experiences is a grassroots nonprofit organization founded in 2018 to help at-risk and disconnected youth in Oceanside. The founder experienced early childhood trauma himself, which led him down a self-destructive path. As an adult, he learned about the effects of early childhood trauma, and through training and mentoring, learned about restorative and therapeutic practices that can help people overcome the damage of their past. He made his mission to provide young people who are suffering as he did with the essential services that can change the trajectory of their lives and lead them to productive futures. Lived Experiences offers a once-a-week food distribution in the Crown Heights and Pazul neighborhoods of Oceanside, where the founder, Oscarin Ortega, grew up. They also offering mentor programs. Mr. Ortega has talked about the weekly food distribution. He said, it's not just about giving people food when they are hungry, it's about what the people in the community do when they get the food. They take it home and they get their family together. They cook together, they sit down together, they reconnect with the community, and that's a big part of how people heal. When you sit down to your meals today, remember what Mr. Ortega said about the healing power of food and community. This quarter, you will have an opportunity to hear from Lived Experiences to get to know much more about this organization and the amazing work they are doing here in our community. If you're currently in a position to continue to making your pledge payments, there are several ways to do that, even in the midst of shelter in place. You can write a check and mail it to our office, or check with your financial institution about how to set up auto payments through our database. Or it's very easy to donate through text to give. You can see the instructions on the screen. Thank you.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life a shape, life justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Thank you, Kimberly, for calling in the spirit of life. The spirit of life isn't just coming to you, Kimberly. Spirit of life, come to us. I kind of sometimes wish that that's what we were singing, with all due respect to Carolyn McDade. Spirit of life, come to us. Come to me, but come to us as a community. And thank you, Eileen and Christina, for sharing your stories, and Kathleen for Sharon, Unitarian Universalism in its really long name. And as the story said, we set aside time in our services to pause, to breathe. Well, the story didn't really say to breathe, but I'm going to invite you to breathe with me. I'm going to invite you to do that again. Just take a breath. If you'd like, you can make that breath deep, or you can just notice your breath as it flows in and out. As we set this time aside to acknowledge all that it is that we bring with us on a Sunday morning. And breathe in and gather ourselves from the various parts of our days, the various parts of our lives, and even the various parts of ourselves. As we acknowledge our joys and our sorrows on this Sunday. If you have a joy or a sorrow, something that you would like to see witnessed, I invite you to go ahead and put that in the chat. And I invite you into that place of silence and honesty known by many names. I invite you to pray with me. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Holy One, moving in, through, and among us, you known by many names and no names. We pause in this moment to recognize all that we have in our lives, our joys and our sorrows. We acknowledge on this Mother's Day that it is a day of celebration for some. It is a day of complication for others. It is a day that is rich and fraught. And we bring all of that complexity. May all who are missing mothers remember the love that you have in you and that has been shared with you from many sources. For those of you who have just become mothers, like Jamie and Amy, we give thanks and praise. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We acknowledge those mothers who are mourning the loss of their children. The mother of Adam Brown in Elizabeth, North Carolina. George Floyd's family. Breonna Taylor, all the names, actually too many to name. We pray that every mother would be able to send their child off to school or to work or out in their neighborhood without fear of being killed by the state. We pray for those mothers and children who are separated at our border, that they may be reunited and that we may take into account all of the love and all of the complexity and make room. May we be mothers of hope. May we be mothers of love, each and every one of us. So as we move out of this time of silence and prayer, I invite you to take a breath, holding in your hearts all it is that you are celebrating and perhaps mourning, and knowing that in this coming together, we are indeed more than we could ever be alone. And know this, you are held in love and mystery deeper than you can know. was a late May evening in Syracuse, New York in 1960 when Unitarian minister, the Reverend Donald Harrington, went to bed, not at all certain that when he woke up, if the vote to consolidate the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America, that he, along with so many others, had worked so hard to promote, if that merger would come about. This is what he wrote. I felt very discouraged and went to bed. Now, let me say this, that we would call it the plenary now, or the general session, but the plebiscite, the group, the gathering, had started to meet again at 8:30 in the evening. 8:30 in the evening, they started to meet to discuss and to wordsmith. So he felt discouraged when he went to bed, and about 1 o'clock, someone pounded on my door. It was Percival Brundage saying, "Don, can't we do something about this?" And he showed me some wording that he and others had continued to work on. I said I agreed, but that since we'd already lost the vote to reconsider, I didn't know how it could be done. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, there was another knock on my door. It was one of the leading Unitarian Christians, and he said, "Don, we've got better wording. Are you still with us?" And he explained that he had persuaded the Universalists to reconsider, which meant that the rules permitted the Unitarians to vote again as well. What an exciting time. How many, if any of you who've been to General Assembly know that the general sessions, or the plenaries as they were called, maybe could go on a little long, but we've been really very mindful in the past number of years to keep them within their time frame. So I want you all to put yourself in 1960 with thousands of Unitarians and Universalists who stayed in their seats. In a bit, we'll hear more about how that trajectory came about. But in Sleepless in Syracuse, the Reverend Allison Cornish and the Reverend Jackie Clement say, as the actual accomplishment of consolidation neared, feelings ran high. Though a preliminary vote clearly indicated that that merger was the option preferred by most Unitarians and Universalists, there were those who questioned its advisability. Would consolidation dissipate resources better used to strengthen congregations? Would merging churches mean lessening the presence of liberal religion in many communities? Would each denomination be giving up its own character, values, and traditions? They write, these differences and doubts came to boil in the 1959 assembly in Syracuse. Some 1,000 delegates gathered to vote on the plan to consolidate offered by the Joint Merger Commission that had been called together in 1954. After a short time together, the Unitarians and Universalists divided into separate sessions to consider the plan. The agreement was that each group found something that required amendment. The proposed amendment would be sent to the other for their consideration, and in the end, they had to agree on the same plan. The colleagues continue, 57 amendments were made and voted on in this back and forth manner. But the most contentious point, the only one that brought the assembly to a halt, was the wording of the purposes and objectives of the yet to be denomination. The wording of the commission first proposed read, to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, immemorially summarized in their essence as love to God and love to man. This wording was adopted overwhelmingly by the Universalist delegation, which then waited for their Unitarian counterparts to do likewise. But in the Unitarian Assembly, the reaction was intense. Some wanted the clause struck as coming too close to a creed. But at the other end of the spectrum, there were those offended that no mention was made of the religion of Jesus or the Judeo-Christian heritage. A new version was proposed to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by Jesus and the other great teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, and prophetically expressed in the Judeo-Christian tradition as love to God and love to man. This set off a debate about the very nature of Unitarianism. It was a debate that had been carried on since the 19th century. Did Unitarianism stand firmly in the tradition of Christian churches, or did it offer a new universal form of religion for all people? Ultimately, the statement proved too narrow to be accepted. Another version was offered, removing the reference to Jesus, but retaining the phrase, our Judeo-Christian heritage, to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, immemorially summarized in our Judeo-Christian heritage as love to God and love to man. This too was unacceptable to the Unitarians, who felt that it placed the religion firmly in the stream of Protestant Christianity. The vote to reconsider the new wording failed by 7 votes of the 600 delegates present. As their meetings ran late into the night, and this is when Harrington went to bed, it looked like the assembly and the merger, 100 years in being conceived, were at a deadlock. And yet those delegates stayed in their seats. However, the new proposal passed, only one word having been changed. Our became the, and the Unitarian Universalist Association was created to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, immemorially summarized in the Judeo-Christian heritage as love to God and love to man. It turned on a word, y'all, our, or the. It turned on a word. Words have always mattered to Unitarians and Universalists and Unitarian Universalists. How many of you have sat through mission planning and visioning? It's like Eileen Maurer, for those of you who can't see, is raising her hand. Yes, but the thing that's important about this story to me is they stayed in their seats. This endeavor so long in the conceiving and in the making. Now that was 1960, May 23rd, 1960. 1 year later, the two denominations gathered to seal the deal. You can imagine. Can you imagine? I get excited and a little emotional when I think about it. They finally reached the momentous day of sealing the consolidation of the Universalist Church of America and the American Unitarian Association. Now, there had been strong theological similarities between the two denominations, but there couldn't have been hardly a greater socioeconomic gulf, which Eileen talked a little bit about the theological conceptions of the joke of Thomas Starr King. The Universalists thought God was too good to damn them, and the Unitarians too good to be damned. God, Eileen, I love how you kind of wrestled with that. But there was the economic gulf as well. Universalists, traditionally blue-collar agricultural working families who believed that a loving creator held all of creation dear. Unitarians were of the highly educated classes and believed that a division of the Godhead into three persons flew in the face of any understandings that they had. And so these were the articulations of these two denominations early on. And it is, in some ways, what kept them apart. And yet, each one grew to be more broadly inclusive theologically and began to move toward each other. A pivotal event was the Parliament of the World Religions in 1893, in which Unitarians and Universalists participated fully. It was brought together leaders of all the great faiths. Mohammedanism, as Islam was called, Vivekananda was there. There were all Christian denominations and certain Christian triumphalism, which it took a while for us to get over. And then there was the universality of religion. As I said, in the 50s, the denominations really started to have conversation, and we heard earlier that the youth merged in 1954. In the merger talks in the 30s, one name proposed for the consolidated denomination was the United Liberal Church of America. Eileen, y'all can't see this. Eileen's like, yeah, because it's not a really, really long name. Or the Free Church Fellowship. Ooh, Eileen's eyes got really big on that one. We ended up with the really, really long name, Unitarian Universalism, a really long name, because there was really such an investment in keeping those distinctions. Now, I think the fact is that the folks at the time of the merger couldn't necessarily have conceived of who we are today. And yet, that happened. One writer says, as the unification became formal in May 1961, at the designated hour, they left their separate meeting spaces and processed into an emerging flow of newly formed Unitarian Universalists. They entered a common hall, singing a hymn that had been written just for that occasion, as tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea. Our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free. Free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed. Free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need. A freedom that reveres the past, but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love. Proclaim the truth that makes us free. And that is our call today. Prophetic church, the future awaits our liberating ministry for us to continue to go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free. We haven't always done that in the ways that God, the universe, the holy love has called us to. In 1966, the prestigious Ware Lectureship was given by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. It was a year after Jimmy Lee Jackson was murdered by an Alabama state trooper. Dr. King recalled the Unitarian Universalists, the Reverend James Reeb and Viola Luiso, both killed a month after Jimmy Lee when they answered Dr. King's call to Selma. Unitarian Universalists were heavily involved in the civil rights movement, as many of you know, and many of you were. Our churches became more diverse, but we failed to live into the prophetic promise. In 1969, what had been called the Black empowerment controversy was more accurately named the fit of white entitlement by the former president of the UUA, the Reverend William Sinkford, in his 2016 sermon at the Service of the Living Tradition. In 1969, the UUA failed to come through and promise financial support for the Black Caucus, resulting in many Black Unitarian Universalists leaving our faith. Of course, it was deeper than that, as UUs have struggled with privilege and racism, as we continue to do to this day. Prophetic Church, the future waits our liberating ministry to go forth in the power of love and proclaim the truth that makes us free. I just don't know that the folks at the time of the merger, the folks in the late 60s, and Tom O'Toole, I know you know this history really well, could have predicted 2017 and where we were as a denomination, as we were called once again into racial justice and into dismantling white supremacy within ourselves and our institutions. But here we are, Prophetic Church, being called once more. And so it is. In this time, here we are, in this living tradition in which there's room for the believer and the non-believer, whatever that means. Because I think what I heard in each of our speakers is it isn't as important what we believe, but that we make the journey, but it's also how we live our lives. But believe me, how we live our lives is informed by what we believe. So Unitarian Universalists can't believe anything we want, but we believe what we must. And here we are now in this living tradition, being called to go deeper, to live into the fullness of who we are. Will you come and go with me to that land?
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound.
And we know there'll be freedom in that land and there'll be justice in that land. And we know, y'all, we aren't going unless there's singing in that land. And so here we are, 60 years hence, a Unitarian Universalism that is responding to the call from within and from without. Which is why when I'll share with you in another way the 6 principles that were created at the time of the merger and then changed in the 1980s to change the patriarchal sexist language, adding a source. But now we're on the brink of adding another principle, the 8th principle, which asks us to journey towards spiritual wholeness by accountably dismantling white supremacy within ourselves and in our institutions. It was the vision of those folks, of the Unitarians and the Universalists, who forged 2 traditions that were unlike any others in Western Christianity, that broke with creed, focused on deeds, focused on answering the call of love wherever it leads us. And so here we are today. I celebrate with you, Palomar Fellowship, that we are celebrating this today, 1 week after the call 17 years ago that you made in calling me as your minister. What a journey these 17 years have been, and what a journey the over 60 years of Palomar Fellowship it has been. Let's do this, y'all. Let's do this. Let's be that prophetic church. Let's be that church that brings into being truly the beloved community. May it be so. Prophetic church. The future awaits our liberating ministry. Let us go forth in the power of love and proclaim the truth that makes us free. Amen. And I love you. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. Although we extinguish this flame, we carry in our hearts the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment until we are together again. All right, beloved ones. We've got another song. I think we should do this song because we are celebrating, honoring, and being called by the past. Feel the ancestors on your back, and by the future. Let's sing together, We Are. Go ahead, Adrian.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
Amen and amen. That we are one. I'm just like, not sure I even caught that the first 20 times I listened to that. So, beloveds, we are going to end this webinar in just a moment, but I wanted to put a couple of things onto your calendar. One is that does everybody have June 13th on your calendar? Adrian, will you spotlight Eileen with me? We'll do this together, Eileen. How's that? We have our annual meeting and it's at 2:00 on June 13th. So does everyone have that on your calendar? Go ahead and put it in the chat if you have that on your calendar. Like seriously, y'all, there's 34 screens here. Y'all have that on your calendar? Yes, Eileen, of course you do. Eileen has it on her calendar. I wonder why. So we'll be reaching out to you to make sure that you get everything that you need to participate in the annual meeting, which includes the agenda, the words of the resolution for the 8th principle. You do now. Thank you. And all the ballots and the bios. Oh, good. It's on people's calendars. Keep it coming, y'all. And the budget. Eileen, isn't there a plan to have like a little budget conversation? Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, we're going to pick a couple of nights before, or maybe a Sunday afternoon and a night.
A Sunday after the service, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I think the next CCAP meeting, you could come and that.
Council of Committees, Activities, and Teams, for those of you who don't know what that means.
So that would be on the 25th. And if you just want to see the budget, we've walked through it line by line with CCAT once, but we'll do it again before the meeting and with the board and the finance committee. So we've kind of given everyone a preview, and then there'll be a couple of chances before the congregational meeting. So if you have questions, we can take the time to go in and really answer them.
That's great. That's great. For those of you who were not able to make the 8th principle workshop, there's going to be a watch party with that. We'll let you know about that. I want people to be assured that the board has called together a reopening task force. And we're not there yet, y'all, but we're getting there. I want you to hold on, okay? Just hang on with me. Can you put in the chat if you're going to hold on with me? You going to hold on with me? You going to do that? Okay. Okay, holding. Yeah, we're all holding. All right. I wish we were in meeting mode because I would like to see people currently holding. I love this.
There's
All
a song
right.
about that too, by the way.
Pardon?
There's a song about that. Hold on, someone standing by.
I don't know that. Holding on. Got people holding on. Got Kimberly singing. I don't know why I'm waving the striker for the bell. It seems like it might be sacrilegious or something like that. So we are going to, happy Mother's Day to all of you. All of you. May you be blessed and know love this day. We're going to go ahead and close the webinar. You can join us. Oh, we need that. We need the link. You can join us on the patio in, I would say at about 11:30. I'll be on the patio. We can hang out for a little bit. If you don't have time today, that's okay. So what do you think? Kimberly, you want to play us out? Adrian, you want to give us the slide? And Christina, can you give us the give us the link? Otherwise I can do it. I'm just gonna
Sure. Because
make-
we had a teaser. I don't want anybody to go away feeling unfulfilled. So how about a little come and go with me?
Oh, yes.
And
Can you sing it?
let's do it, people. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. Happy Mother's Day.